Hello and welcome into this week's edition of The Pole Position right here on Racing News Now. As always, I'm your host, Garth Allen. Thank you once again for joining me today. If this is your first time catching a Racing News Now video, consider going down below to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications so you don't miss a thing going forward from RNN. On today's edition of Pole Position, it is back this week, as you can see. We did miss a week with it. It was a little hectic last week trying to get everything done, and unfortunately not everything did get done. But we're back at it this week with Pole Position to recap you on everything that happened this weekend. Not just the NASCAR stuff as we do with the Rewind shows, but everything from the major forms of motorsports. So, let's get right into things this week. As usual, we'll start with the NASCAR stuff to get that out of the way since we already covered that a lot more in depth on the Rewind shows. They are linked down below in the description as usual if you want a more in-depth recap of any of these NASCAR races. So, we'll start off with the truck race. There were two races from Kansas this weekend. The truck race was the first one, the Digital Ally 250, 167 laps, 250.5 miles around the 1.5 mile Kansas Speedway, Kansas City, Kansas. Ross Chastain picks up his first Truck Series victory and the first victory for Nice Motorsports in the trucks. A very feel-good story. Very reminiscent of when he won the Xfinity race last season with Chip Ganassi Racing. He has quickly become, I think, one of the fan favorites in all three series. It's hard not to like the guy. He's a great guy, and it's really cool to see him win, especially with what you would probably consider an underfunded team with Nice Motorsports. Ben Rhodes came home with a strong second-place finish. Todd Gilliland in third. Austin Hill came home with a strong top five run, and Brandon Jones rebounded from an early spin to finish in the top five. Rest of your top 10 were Matt Crafton, Grant Infinger, Brett Moffitt, Riley Herbst, and Harrison Burton. All right, on to the other race from Kansas this weekend. It was the Cup Series. They were in action in the Digital Ally 400. 267 laps was the scheduled distance. We went 271 laps, 4 laps into overtime. 400 miles around the 1.5 mile Kansas Speedway, Kansas City, Kansas. Brad Keselowski takes the victory in this one. Snookered him at the end. It was really, I think, probably Alex Bowman's race to lose at the end, and unfortunately he did lose it. I think he definitely had the faster car at the end of the race, but Brad Keselowski outran him on the final run before the final caution, and then was able to get the jump on the restart and take the victory. Alex Bowman comes home with another second place finish. I believe that's 2 weeks in a row now, maybe 3, where he has finished in second. Eric Jones in third, Chase Elliott fourth, and Clint Boyer rounds out the top 5. Rest of your top 10 were Jimmy Johnson, Kurt Busch, Kyle Larson. A strong run for Tyler Reddick in the 31 car for RCR this week. He is the highest finishing RCR car in Kansas, and Chris Buescher rounds out the top 10. Alright, so that'll do it for the Kansas stuff. So now let's move on to the K&N Pro Series. They ran a Twin 100 doubleheader from Tucson Speedway on Saturday night. The Port of Tucson Twin 100s, 100 laps, 37.5 miles each around the .375 mile Tucson Speedway in Tucson, Arizona. Derek Kraus is your winner from race number 1, leading all 100 laps from Tucson in the first race. Tanner Gray came home in the second position. Haley Deegan a strong third. Jagger Jones in fourth, and Brittany Zamora rounded out the top 5. Alright, so let's quickly move on here to the second Twin 100. Same night from Tucson Speedway, and Derek Kraus swept the night from Tucson, picking up the victory in Twin 100 number 2. Wasn't as dominant as he was in the first race. Did not take the lead until lap 62 in this race, but did lead the final 39 laps en route to the victory. Brittany Zamora led a strong 26 laps in this race and finished with her first podium finish ever in third. Tanner Gray again comes home in the second position. Trevor Huddleston in fourth, and Matt Levine rounded out the top 5 in Twin 100 number 2. Alright, so that does it for the stock car stuff for the weekend. Now we'll move on to the open wheel stuff, and it is the IndyCar Grand Prix from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Grand Prix circuit. 85 laps for the NTT IndyCar Series, 207.3 miles around that 2.43 mile road course in the middle of IMS and Speedway, Indiana. Simon Pagenaud takes the victory in this race once again. We've run this race now, how many years? 5 years now, and we've had 2 winners in this race. Either Simon Pagenaud or Will Power has won it every year that this race has been run. Only led 5 laps in this race, though, en route to this victory. So not a super dominating victory for the driver of that Penske 22 car. Scott Dixon came home in the second position, leading the most laps in the race, 39 for Dixon. And Jack Harvey actually rounded out the podium in this race. A couple other possible surprises here in the top 5. Matthias Leist in 4th and Spencer Pigot rounding out the top 5 and 5th. Rest of your top 10 were Ed Jones, Will Power, Felix Rosenquist, Graham Rahal, and Santino Ferrucci. All right, on to Formula One from the weekend. They were in Spain this weekend for the Emirates Grand Prix of Spain. 66 laps, 307.2 kilometers around the 4.655 kilometer Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona, Spain. Lewis Hamilton picks up win number 3 on the season. We have yet to see a winner outside of Mercedes this season in Formula One. It has either been Lewis Hamilton or Valtteri Bottas winning every single race thus far this season. And in fact, they have swept the top 2 finishing positions in all 5 races thus far this season as well. So Mercedes starting off this season head and shoulders above everyone else. It really, in past seasons, you had your 3 big teams. You had Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari. I think Mercedes has kind of pulled themselves above Red Bull and Ferrari at this point, and I think they are head and shoulders the best team in Formula One right now. It'll be interesting to see if anybody can knock them off from that by the end of the season, but at the rate they're going, Mercedes may win out this whole season and not let anyone else win a Grand Prix this season in Formula One. Bottas does come home in the second position with Max Verstappen rounding out the podium. Rest of your top 5 were the 2 Ferraris of Sebastian Vettel and Charles Leclerc. Rest of your top 10 receiving points, you have the Red Bull in 6th, Pierre Gasly. The Haas number 20 of Kevin Magnussen in 7th. McLaren in 8th for Carlos Sainz, Toro Rosso for Daniil Kvyat in 9th, and the other Haas for Romain Grosjean rounds out the top 10. Alright, so that does it for Formula 1 from the weekend. Let's move on to Formula E. They were in Monaco this weekend for the Monaco E-Prix. Jean-Eric Vergne takes the victory in this 51-lapper from Monaco, beating out Oliver Rowland by only 0.2 of a second in this race, and Felipe Massa rounding out the podium for the Venturi Formula E team. Pascal Wehrlein and Sebastian Buemi also finishing in the top 5 in this race. Final race of the weekend, had no NHRA this weekend, no IMSA. We just have World of Outlaws to talk about now, and they only had one race this weekend. It was from Eldora, and it was the hashtag Let's Race 2. Donnie Schatz takes the win in this one, leading all 30 laps in the NOS Energy Drink feature, beating out Logan Schuchert and Carson Macedo, also finishing in the podium. David Gravel, Jacob Allen picking up top 5 positions as well, and Christopher Bell back here in the 6th position, making one of his rare starts in the World of Outlaws. Good to see him running there on an off weekend from the Xfinity Series. But that's all we got for you this week on Pole Position. Diecast review coming up as usual on Wednesday. We have a Derek Kraus interview coming up here in probably the next 2 to 3 hours. So keep an eye out for that. Talking to him about his win in the Twin 100s from Tucson. And then we're working on trying to get a Ross Chastain interview to talk about his win from the truck race on Friday night. Haven't got that completely lined out yet, but we are in talks. So we'll see what happens with that. You may see a Ross Chastain interview go up here in the next day or two, so keep an eye out for that. I know there's a lot of people that would like to see that, so I'm really hoping we can get that worked out and we can get Ross Chastain here on RNN. But That's about it till we get to Toledo next weekend. Of course, we will be live at the track with ARCA from Toledo this coming weekend, so keep an eye out for that. Hailie Deegan's debut in the ARCA Menard Series, so very anticipated race because of that. So there'll be a lot of hype around this race, and it'll be a fun atmosphere to be around. We will be sure to keep you in the loop here and take you along with us to Toledo Speedway for all the fun this weekend up there in Northern Ohio. So if you haven't done it already, you need to go down below, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications so you don't miss a thing going forward from RNN. While you're down there, why don't you hit that big thumbs up button if you like the video. It is much appreciated when you do. But at that, this has been the pole position where you always start on the front row. I'm Garth Allen for Racing News Now.